My outer definition, it used to be impeccably suited, so fitting for me. The pants, the jacket, space to hang a tie, Mr. Corporate International, ready to fly. But somewhere there's an empty suit, single-breasted, flat-chested, hanging on a hanger at the end of the rail. And somewhere there's a naked man dancing a caper, escaper, tending to his garden and brewing his ale.
Today I'm talking to Pete Harbidge, one of the luckiest men I know. He's got a beautiful family, an amazing wife, a gorgeous house across the road from the beach, and spends his time travelling, gardening, brewing his ales. But where does Pete get all the time to do this? Well, Pete retired in his 40s. So you're a little bit older than that now, Pete. So
Yeah,
you've spent
touch.
you've spent a bit of time in retirement.
Yeah.
But, I mean, ultimately, I guess for us and a lot of our listeners, that's kind of the dream, right? You're building all this wealth so that you can work because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah.
And you've had a, really good time doing that, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, I mean, tell me about yourself. Why don't we start with, what do you do with your days? What does retired Pete do?
Okay.
And then we'll talk about how you got there.
Okay.
And yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Well, it's amazing how busy you can be. I remember saying once to one of my ex-colleagues, I don't know how I ever found time for work. They did remark that they didn't think I did anyway.
Oh, right.
But someone has to be the rainmaker, right? Someone has to go out there and drum up business. But to simplify how we go through our day, my wife Willie and I came up with pinched, P-I-N-C-H-T. And basically, we sit down and we think about what we want to do in the course of a year or in the course of a week or whatever, around those 6 letters. Now, P stands for physical, so that means exercise, and that's walking, and that's swimming, and that's doing stuff which keeps us physically able, flexible, and that's no matter what you choose to do with your life. Your physical capability is important, and you need to help yourself out there as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a consequence of that, we've been able to, in some of our travels, do some fabulous things. We've climbed Kinabalu in Borneo, we've hiked in tea plantations in Sri Lanka, we've hiked across Crete, across Corsica, we've hiked Mount Etna, we have hiked the Austrian Alps, walked the South Down Way, we've cycled across Britain, we've climbed Britain's 3 highest peaks. We've done most things.
What an amazing time.
We've had a fabulous life.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to start that at the age of 65, I may not have the physical capability to see everything that we've done. We've lived overseas for months at a time.
Yeah.
That way, you get to know the people. You get absorbed into the local community. That's called traveling rather than being a tourist.
Yeah.
And for those people concerned about their carbon footprint when they travel somewhere, if you stay in a place for 6 months, well, it negates itself.
Yeah.
So that's another sort of mild factor to it. But to do that, you need some physical capability.
Yeah.
So that's P. I is intellect. So that could be, that's keeping your brain active and engaged. That could be, looking at TED Talks or going to guest lectures from somebody or listening to podcasts.
Yes. Well, good.
All those
plug,
sorts
good
of
plug.
things, puzzles, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Reading more. It's amazing how much time you can just beautifully spend reading. The books you meant to read and never did.
Yeah.
The books you wanted to read again and never did. You do, and that's gorgeous. We love reading. N is networking, and that's keeping in touch with people. One of the 5 regrets of the dying is that they didn't see enough of their friends. So we catch up with our friends, and we have made lots of new friends around the world. People that are interesting in themselves, but also interested in us. That's sort of a bit of a gate that we need to apply sometimes. Otherwise, you can have sort of too many connections. You never quite do them justice. Interested and interesting. C is creativity. For Billy, that's physical art. So she's been a finalist in the World of Wearable Arts 3 times. Her beautiful paintings adorn our house. She's very, very clever with her hands. For me, it's music. I'm in 5 bands, playing 5 different instruments, and it's just a fun thing. And we've recently just launched our latest recording with one of the groups I'm in, the Dags. It's on Spotify, called Just 3 Chords.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Dags came about because my 2 mates only wanted to learn the ukulele but didn't want to know too many chords, so D's, A's and G's were the chords that we learned. And
all the best songs are D's, A's and G's, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they are, really. They play a few more now, but under protest. So music's an important thing, and that's also been a gateway to some beautiful relationships overseas. I played in a local village band in France. I've played and recorded with a wonderful musician in Scotland. Yeah. I played in a lovely little brass band in the Stiper Stones in Shropshire. It opens doors, and it is the universal language. That helps a lot. H is health and home. So we've like to think we've created the home that we will always want to be in. It's not a museum, but it's got a lot of memorabilia in there.
It's a beautiful home.
Thank you.
It's so warm and
loving. And inviting it. Yeah, and people they seem to breathe better when they're in there. You know, they sit down and that's even without the wine, you know, they just sit down and make themselves comfortable. And health is, you know, I mentioned physicality, but health is more critical than that, of course. Yeah. And so we grow a lot of our stuff we eat. You know, I go to the supermarket, I walk past the tomatoes, I walk past the cucumbers, I walk past the lettuce, I walk past a whole lot of stuff because I've already got it at home, you know. And you've got time to slow cook, and you've got time to experiment with different recipes, and you've got time to bake your own bread, and you've got time to just have a whole lot better diet, you know. And as a result of that, you know, you tend to eat less meat, and you tend to do things which we don't have fast food necessarily because we don't need it, you know, because we've got time. We're not in a rush to cook anything. But so health's critical, home's nothing. And T is travel. And I've touched on that already.
Capital T for you guys.
Capital T, absolutely. I mean, I think this year, end of this year, we'll have been to 70 countries together.
Wow.
And that's not an ego sort of tick the box thing, you know. It's just it really interests us.
The world's there to explore, right?
And you know, the things like the Trans-Siberian Railway, or hiking in a Mongolian national park, or all these wonderful things we've done. Living in the south of France for 6 months, living in Scotland for 5 months, living in Shropshire for 6 months, living in the Loire Valley in France for a couple of months. It's hard to beat.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But you need time to do that.
And people make movies about it, and you see movies about it, and you go, wouldn't that be lovely?
Yeah, correct.
And then you get to experience it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, now we're blessed with 4 beautiful grandchildren. And we're blessed with 2 great kids and they have fabulous partners. And to see everyone prosper is great. But to see your grandkids grow, you can't do that if you're in France for 6 months. So we're kind of pleased to have got that out of the way, so now we can devote more time to our larger and expanding family.
Yeah. And I guess when COVID kind of put the brakes on your travel for a couple of years, but I guess that's when your grandkids were turning up.
I mean, we've had some fortunate tailwinds, I think. You know, we've been living off our investments in a time when there's been relatively low inflation. And you know, so that's a different sort of proposition now in terms of working your investments. So we've been lucky enough to get through the global financial crisis and the financial elements around COVID and stuff without the portfolio being too badly affected. So it's partly because we're conservative investors, but it also means that, you know, we've had some lucky times, I think, too, and made the most of those, you know.
So tell me about that. So if we jump back, I mean, you don't just go from working to instantly retiring.
No, that's right.
It takes a lot of work, I guess, planning, I'm assuming.
Certainly planning.
I had a little, I don't know what you call it, saying. I was saying to Darcy, you know, being retired, it's kind of like being pregnant. Everyone's very quick to congratulate you, but no one knows how many times you were screwed. So, as such, I mean, tell me about the journey to retirement. So you're working. Yeah. What did you do for work? How did you plan for retirement? And how, you know, what's...
Yeah.
Teach us the ways, Sensei.
there are a couple of not cathartic moments, but it was a gradual process, I guess, you know. I loved working. Let's get that straight. I had the privilege of working with some fabulous colleagues, and some amazing clients, you know, so I really love working, but I love not working more.
Yeah.
And that's, so we didn't call it retirement, we call it Re-Wirement, right? And that was, and it was like it was a springboard, not an abyss. And everyone sees that like a tap being turned off.
Yeah.
For us, it was this gradual, almost like an osmosis into a new way of life. And a lot of people fail to make that change because they just flick a switch. And basically, you need to be living like you're retired in terms of how you spend your money and all those other sorts of things well before you are retired. So you sort of know what you're going to, and you know your interests in all those things are developed and honed. So you just blend into that when you go. Financially, which is you can't do this without finance, right?
Yes.
And we everything we have, we haven't had an endowment or an inheritance or anything. Everything, our parents are really supportive, but not when it came to money.
Yeah.
They couldn't do that, and that's okay, I understand that. Yeah. But everything we have, we've earned ourselves, right? So we set goals early on. Our first goal really was to get rid of debt, get rid of mortgage, and that creates a bit of a mindset. Once you do that, then you're a little bit hesitant about getting more debt. So we didn't get the boat, and we didn't get the batch. A lot of people like their wealth to be conspicuous.
Yes.
I get that. You know, I understand that. And you don't really go around showing people your portfolio balance on your screenshots sort of thing. Look what I'm worth today. You don't do that.
You don't print it on your T-shirt.
But driving a Beamer is a way of doing that, and I get that. But we decided that wasn't us. We called it enoughness.
Yeah.
We have enough.
Yeah.
And so a couple of things that made us sort of that really pointed us in that direction. We won a book called 20 Good Summers by Martin Hawes. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention other financial advisors.
He was a guest on the podcast.
Oh, right.
So
okay, cool.
No,
Got a lot of time for him.
Yeah.
He makes a very clear difference between investing and speculating. And so that's honed our guidance a little bit too. So we invest in shares which are solid and which pay a dividend as opposed to something which may give a capital gain somewhere down the track.
Yep.
But that book, 20 Good Summers, the principal theory is when you turn 50, you've got 20 good summers left. Might have more, might have less.
Yeah.
So what is it you want to do with those 20 good summers? Mary Oliver, an American poet, what is it that you wish to do with your one wild and precious life? Dr. Seuss. How did it get so late so soon? It's late in the evening, I thought it was noon. It's late in December, I thought it was June. How did it get so late so soon?
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
You're looking at, you know, at a finite life.
Yeah. Yep. It's not a dress rehearsal.
Not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
And so how do you want to spend that? And for us, it wasn't, we wanted to do more things. We wanted to do different things. And then we sat down and said, well, how much, what sort of income are we getting off this? Because we never really, all income that we got was reinvested because we lived off one salary, paid off the mortgage, lived off one salary, and the other salary and bonuses, and all the bonuses went into investment.
Cool.
But, you know, we weren't frugal. You know, we had a saying, every dollar a prisoner, but it wasn't quite like that. You know, we had holidays with the kids and made sure they had a special life.
But more mindful about spending. Right,
but more mindful about spending. So I didn't buy the coffee every day.
Yeah.
You know, I took my own lunch, and you know, and that amazed some people that I should do that. But it's you know, a coffee a day for a week is $20-something at the time, times 50 weeks a year is $1,000. There's a holiday for two to Sydney, a weekend for two to Sydney or something. You know?
And if it's not important to you, you know, if you didn't care about a coffee, then why would you spend the money for the sake of it? Yeah.
So we sat down and we said, well, hold on, all of a sudden we're earning this amount, and with no debt, and so can we live off this amount? Yes, we can. Now, but what are going to be our fallback positions, assuming the dividends stop flowing, as they have done with companies from time to time? Auckland Airport still hasn't paid a dividend in 3 years, you know. So what are the fallback positions? So we could rent the house out.
Yep.
We could take in a boarder. Yep. You know, we could go and house sit somewhere, you know, and all of a sudden everything seems possible. If you set a goal, you can. If you don't set a goal, you won't. And we're big believers in that. We've still got a little sheet of paper with our monthly savings targets. And at the end of every month, we'd initial it and give ourselves a little star or a little stamp or something. Because, you know, it was an achievement, and we just saw it gradually build. And with reinvesting dividends and with compound interest, it just grows. You get to a point, and exponentially, it starts to zoom, and you can say, well, this is working.
And it's I guess, do you agree that it's getting those foundations right? Things like spending less than you earn.
Yep.
You know, keeping a cap or at least managing your expenses and things like that kind of set you up for.
Yeah. So I know you guys are big into financial literacy.
Yes.
And me too.
Yeah.
And it's I think they're changing the curriculum at school so there's more of that, but there's never going to be enough really. You know, kids leave school and they get into hire purchase arrangements, and that's them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of teachers are quite savvy with money, but a lot of teachers are not. And, you know, because they're more about the social kind of things.
Yeah.
And we've got an example now, you know, with any government tends to spend more than they earn. So what sort of example is that to kids, you know?
Yeah.
So it's tricky. Yeah. We, with our kids, we gave them an allowance every week, but we took some of that allowance back and put it into a travel fund. This is like a tax, so they learned about a tax.
Nice.
But they got a say as to where we went for holiday, so they got a right for that. I remember we were sitting down one night having dinner and talking about the next holiday, and I was outvoted 3-1.
Oh no!
So you know, and that's
democracy,
cool.
Right?
That's democracy. I couldn't argue with that. But that was, and then we had a great holiday. You know, they were right. But they had their own cash point card. But from that, they had to buy their own clothes, their own gifts, and things like that.
Yeah.
So if they needed to buy a pair of designer jeans or something really expensive, there was never any argument about it because they just had to save for it. Over to you, it's your money.
Yep.
And if they didn't do their chores or whatever was required of them to get that money, I couldn't take the card off them. That was their responsibility, their property. But what I could do was stop the flow of money going from our account to theirs because it was still our property while it was in our account.
Yeah.
So I only had to do that 1 or 2 times. But that's taught both of those kids, our kids, are fabulous with money.
Yes.
And it's because, you know, I think from an early age they managed it for themselves.
And they understood it, right?
And they understood
that money's a tool.
Yeah.
It's not a given. It's there to get you things.
Absolutely. And I think your kids pick up any coins they see on the ground.
They've been trained. My husband, any coin. You pick up a 10-cent coin, you're 1/10 of a way to $1, and then
there you go. I love that.
Well, you know, every crumb makes the loaf, right?
That's true. But you know, when it comes to money, though, just you know, some people are so poor, all they have is money.
Yes.
So it's important that, you know, that it's not just all about money.
No.
But it's a tool, as you say. It's exactly right. It's a tool.
Yep.
But you've got to have your own structures, your own authentic self in place.
Yeah.
That's going to help you, you know, explore things when you're able to do so.
Yeah. And we talk about this as well, as around finding your why. So, you know, you could save up this giant retirement fund and then you finish working and then you kind of sit there and go, well, what am I doing? Like, what is this all for? What was that all for? That, you know, saving and whatnot. And without a reason or a why or, you know, the bigger picture, I guess, around what was that money, the tool to do, you know, like it's to spend time with your grandchildren. It's to spend 6 months traveling and enriching your life. It's not having to leave your spouse in the morning and see them at 6 o'clock at night. And that's, you know, the extent of your relationship. You know, have lunch with them, blah, blah, blah.
Well, we just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary, right?
Congratulations.
And that's, awesome. So in the last 15 years since I've been retired, one of the joys for me is being able to spend more time with Billy. You know, we have one phone between us.
Yep.
We don't, because we're together so much.
Yeah.
We don't need to have separate phones.
You got one car too? Or have you?
One car?
Yeah.
That was one of the first things. But spending time and breathing the same air. You know, we've got our own different interests and things, of course. But it's just that being able to sit down together and have a glass of wine in the evening. It's just and talk about your day and what's been special, what's happened with the kids. Those are precious moments, you know.
Yeah, and you don't get them back, right?
You don't get those back. No. In fact, you know, another one of the 5 regrets of the dying. I think these were passed on. So it's a collection of memories of people who worked in hospice care and the things that were said to them more often than not. One was that, you know, I wish I'd worked less. You know, and it's pretty hard to say that when you're on your deathbed. You know, it's pretty hard you can't do anything about it then. You can always work more if you can try it. You know, it takes a bit of courage to say I'm not going to go to work because a lot of people's self-esteem and image is tied up with what they do.
Yes.
You know, their title is everything to them. And when they don't have their title, who are they? What are
am
they
I?
going to be?
Because they didn't have anything outside of work.
Possibly. And also their image of themselves is the one that work wants them to be rather than who they are themselves.
Yeah.
And a really good test of that is if you look at people's friendships, how many are from early flatting days, how from early university days. If they still got lots of friends in that category, then that's you're looking at the authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similarly, if you're looking to get a guide on work ethic, right? Ask people what they did in their school holidays. Everyone can remember, no matter what age, what they did in the school holidays in terms of jobs. And people say, well, there weren't any jobs available. Really?
Yeah.
Now, particularly, there's huge opportunities out there for kids to find things. Another thing we encourage our kids to do is to get into sales jobs. Because, retail sales particularly, because they learn about dealing with the public, they learn about the realities of commercial life. They learn about listening. The best salespeople are the best listeners. And Will was working in a photo shop. He got heaps of prizes from various manufacturers for meeting his sales budget. This is as a part-time worker.
Yeah.
And one of his favourite lines was, this is the camera I sold my mum and dad.
Oh.
It never failed.
Yeah.
But he learned that sort of thing, and now he's a creative director for a London-based industrial design studio. Yeah. He lives in Auckland.
Yep.
And he's got that role, and mainly because he's not only is he a great designer, but he's great with clients.
Yeah.
Clients trust him.
Yep.
And and Al worked in retail sales, and she is able to build rapport with anyone really, and it's because that's part of her learning, part of her background.
Yeah.
So and they both have had that exposure of earning their own money and doing stuff with it from an early age.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any rocket science things here,
Yeah.
I
guess it's, but there are so many, when we're talking about, people leave school, go straight into hire purchases because there's not much, I don't know, I guess it's a mindset thing around the outwardness appearance of wealth.
Yes.
So, you want to have the latest iPhone and you want to do all of this stuff. So there's a big importance or push about being authentic and what is authentically you.
Yeah.
You aren't the iPhone. You aren't the designer jeans.
Yeah.
How do you instill that into your children or yourself, I guess, if that's not naturally you? Yeah.
I think, and so I can see this from sort of three perspectives now, right? And I think the answer is the parents, obviously, but grandparents. Now I am a grandparent, and I've seen. I think my mother and father were fabulous grandparents. Or my mother still is, and great grandparent. But my grandfather was one of my early mentors,
Right.
and he was just an amazing man.
Yeah.
And I love him to this day.
Yeah.
And so, and my grandmother also, but their influence on us was strong. Right. And so, and they were themselves, and you saw them mix with other people, and you saw them be exactly the same sort of people as they were. So that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And so sometimes parents are under a lot of strain and stress, and you don't, there's always a bit of tension sometimes, at the end of the week, and da-da-da-da.
Kids are tough.
Kids are tough. Yeah, they are. And I'm sure I'm sure I can't be. I know I wasn't necessarily an easy kid to have around, but my grandparents provided. They were the lightning rod for stuff. Yeah. And I think grandparents, if you're lucky enough to have grandparents, embrace them and use them, and that's an authentic. That's where the people learn the authenticity from, because grandparents generally can't be bothered being somebody else.
That's it.
So I think that that as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. I think grandparents are a big part of that village.
Yeah,
Maybe.
massively. Yeah. My dad always says that he thinks he's a better grandfather than he was a father. He was an amazing father, so I can't really comment on that. But he just said, as a grandfather, you've got a bit more space, a bit more patience. You're doing it again, so you kind of don't sweat the small stuff, and you
don't not wander a frazzle either.
Yeah.
You do give them back. But you also learn through your grandkids.
Yeah.
And I think it's a two-way journey, and that's fabulous. Yeah. And they make you laugh.
They do. I mean, through every aspect of your life, I see so many, hallmarks, pillars of things like stability, loyalty, resilience, all of these really amazing qualities in a person. Are you naturally like that? Is this something that you've had to learn to be, or is that are things people just drawn to stick to you?
Yeah. I think anything like that is learned. Some people have some natural capabilities, natural charisma or whatever it might be. But it's the 10,000 hours thing almost. You've heard of that.
No, tell me.
So you can become an expert at anything if you invest 10,000 hours into it. And I don't know where the number came from. But if you think like learning a musical instrument, you might have you might be able to sing in tune. But to learn an instrument, it's going to take you time. You have to practice and you have to do stuff. I remember being at university, right? And my holiday jobs were of a manual labour kind of thing. And when I was at uni, a mate of mine was the editor of the student newspaper, and he asked if I would be the advertising manager. Now, that's a hard sell, No, students have no money.
No.
Back then they didn't. And so who wants to advertise with a student newspaper? You're spending your money to advertise to someone who don't have any.
Yeah.
Actually, this is in Hamilton, so the Hillcrest pub was obviously that was a goer. That wasn't a hard sell at all. But other than that, I had to really work hard, and I got to learn the value of networking. I got a hold of an uncle who owned a bakery, and so he took up a quarter page for the whole year, and so all of a sudden you get a portfolio of successes, and then one yes leads to another yes. And I started to learn just to read a little bit about sales. It was never taught at uni. It's never taught anywhere, but it's in the States. You talk. They say I'm in sales. They say it with pride. Here it's I'm in sales, but I'm going to be in marketing soon. Though not enough people say it with pride. It's a skill. It's a life skill. Anyway, so I remember, every no's one step closer to a yes, and all those catchphrases I learned when I was 18. I still believe in now. And it's not about as someone who it wasn't about them. It wasn't about the leader. And if something went wrong, they'd step up and say, right, let's get this sorted.
Yep.
So not hard.
No.
But, a lot of people, have made a great career out of lecturing about leadership. But, because there's, where there's mystery, there's margin.
That's right, yeah.
If
same thing with investing, right? Where there's mystery, there's margin.
Of course.
So they kind of
course.
Back to financial literacy, they kind of coat it in all this jargon and...
Yep. You'd know more about that than me, I think.
Yeah, well, because I thought it was such a weird industry and such a mysterious industry. You have to be so clever to understand investing. And when we peeled back all the layers, I went,
yeah, exactly.
So you get more than what you put in. Why don't they just say that?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. There's a great book, The Intelligent Investor, 1949, Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's Bible, basically.
Yeah.
And the lessons there are really straightforward. You buy quality, you hold. Yep. And what defines quality? Well, that varies over time, but it's market position. That they're hard to beat, and they've been there a long time. Steady history of dividend payouts. You guys are the financial advisors. You can help your clients with the details on that. But that's you got a plan. You stick to it. The long term trend is up. Generally, and so you just got to be patient and not go with not respond to short-term market movements. Just hang in there, and just stay true to the course.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sounds like that might be your tagline, Pete. Stay the course.
Well, I'm not changing it.
Yeah. Well, you've got friends from 60 years ago. You've got a wife of 40 years. You've got you've been in your home for
35 years.
35 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people have realised a good thing and have stuck with you.
Yeah. Well, but some people find that boring. I get that. I know a lot of people that could do what I'm doing, but they choose not to, and that's entirely up to them. Yeah. But I'm bewildered by that. I just think I don't quite get that. All the time's going, and every year, even at 65 now, I can feel myself just slightly less physically able than what I was able to do a couple of years back.
Really?
Yep, just little things,
Yeah.
And it's just that's going to get worse. No matter what I do.
Yeah.
There's no way have we ever felt we've made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Ever.
You and I are cut from the same cloth, I think. I'm like you too. I like I don't know, I'm a stable person.
Yeah, of course.
Very loyal person,
Of
all of
course.
that type of stuff. And I just, but I mean, I don't know about you, but we're passive investors. That's what
Yes,
we do.
correct.
What would it take for somebody to sway you to an active investment strategy? Would you ever look at something where
No.
someone was trying to outtime
No.
markets and whatnot?
No.
Not your thing.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we've brought in the past a couple of speculative stocks, which ended up being bad.
Right.
So I've sort of been burned, not a lot of money,
Yeah.
but enough to make it stick in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't see the point.
Yeah.
And I mean, we would look at the valuation on our portfolio. Maybe there's been a significant shift, like Z Energy's being bought out or something.
Yep.
So we've shifted that money around. So we'd look at it in detail once a quarter.
Right. Yeah.
And because you don't value your house every day.
Yeah.
I look at the NZX. You've got to stay informed.
Yes.
I look at the NZX. I see what company announcements might be made in regards to the particular holdings we've got. We don't have many. We used to have 30 shares. We've now probably got 20.
Right. Yeah.
But the value, the break, the golden rule used to be your age is the percentage you have in bonds and cash. Now that's changed a little because interest rates have been low. You wouldn't have been doing too well if you had everything paying 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
And we're probably still the other way around. We're probably still 2/3 shares and 1/3 bonds and cash, which we would probably look to move, so more to a 50-50 position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if a share is more likely to go bung than a bond, and we've got less time, and we don't to recover that necessarily.
Yeah. You've got travelling.
Yeah, we've got
to do.
travelling to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that. But passive is that's our way, and it's not everyone's way. And some people, but it's things like, you got to get qualified advice.
Yes.
And you guys provide that, obviously.
Yep.
The sharesies kind of thing where your advice is coming from social media. That's I think David Lange, the ex-Prime Minister, once described share market investing like reef fish. They sort of the score going, and all of a sudden they dart this way, and all of a sudden they dart that way.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be like that. You want to be the shark, the pelagic beast that's going there. It's 2,000 miles, but it's going to go there, and the quickest way to do that's in a straight line.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's kind of how we see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we would not be tempted in that. And the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it bloody well is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
What's the thing? I guess that's for younger investors or people just starting their financial journey. There is all of those things that you have to consider. Like I think Darcy said it before. Good advice to a person at the wrong time is actually bad advice.
Yeah.
So, I guess.
Well, that's why we decided to get rid of debt first, because that's a given.
Yep.
We know that the mortgage was costing us 8% or whatever it was at the time, and so we that's a given. So your investment return might be 9, it could be 4.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Paid out your mortgage.
But I'm going to get rid of the mortgage first.
Eight straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
8, there you go.
Yeah.
And so it's guaranteed. And then, as I say, once you get that debt-free mindset, you really are reluctant to get more.
Yeah.
And some people, and that I think that's one of the things about rental properties, is that we've never had a rental property.
Yeah.
I'm too lazy.
Yeah.
They seem like hard work. You've got tenant issues, you've got maintenance issues. Now some of that's handled by property managers and stuff, but they take a cut.
You got to pay it. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And so all of a sudden your yield's not looking that flash. And I'm sure after this flooding that's recently been in Auckland, and so many people have been so badly affected by that. Quite a few of those, and I've got friends who are saying to me, the dividend stream's looking pretty sweet at the moment.
Yeah,
because yes, we have listed property companies, but they'll fix that up.
Yeah, you
They've
don't
got
rip carpet out
they've
of
got a
somewhere.
breadth of tenants and diversity. Diversity is really important. I can't stress that enough. Most of our shares have been New Zealand shares, but we have Australian shares to give us more global presence and to get us exposure into industries you can't get here, like mining, for instance, like finance, like pharmaceuticals. So we've got Australian companies in those categories to give us that diversity across the industry spread. But we don't have US stocks. We don't have British stocks. I like to kind of know a little bit about what we're investing in and keep informed of those things. Now, they may be safer bets in the long term because they themselves are more diversified, but that's not the way we've chosen to go.
Yeah.
And so there's a risk there for us. We're not as diversified as some people would suggest we are, but I'm comfortable with that level of risk.
Yeah. Authentic investing. So,
It kind of is. It's true to our. For instance, one day we had Sky City shares.
Yep.
And Billy and I sat down one day and said, hold on. We'd walked through Sky City. And I said, a lot of people, are there and it's important to them and it's a way for them to, spend their leisure time. That's great. Yeah. But it's not something that we were comfortable with necessarily. Yeah. Yeah. I like the entertainment there.
Yeah.
The bands are great.
Yeah.
But
and you people jobs.
Yeah, true. I get all that. But the gambling side of things, we said, no, we're not going to be in this share. We don't want to have this share anymore.
Yeah.
And so, no, we're not, we're not ardent about that. Yeah. But that's one example of how we, our feeling about ourselves has been reflected into the portfolio that we have.
We've had a few KiwiSaver clients actually that we've discussed.
Yep.
We've met to them, discussed where's your KiwiSaver, blah, blah, blah. And then when we've actually dug a little deeper, they haven't realised that there's some sort of things that are either unethical in someone's mind or they're just not comfortable investing in. And, they've had they might be young, they've had the KiwiSaver for 10 years or something and never realised that they've been inadvertently funding something that they're really against.
Right, yeah. Well, we have started or close to starting up, we've got to get our kids in the gear, but share plans for the grandkids.
Oh, cool. And
so we put in a little bit a month, the parents match that, a little bit each week, the parents match that. And that money is going into share portfolios for the grandkids, for their education.
Yep.
Because, education is the answer to everything, really, around the world. And if you encourage everyone to extend their education, then that's going to be for the betterment of our communities. So if one of your grandkids know or your children know that there's a fund set aside to assist them in that, they are more likely to take that direction because that's one less hurdle they have to be concerned about. Yep. And so that we are advocates, very strong advocates of it as well. Yeah.
And like I said, if you start now, it's not going to be a huge amount of money to pay out in one lump sum when they turn 18 or anything like that. It's a drip-fed amount of money that grows and compounds and then they've got it there. We recently set our two sons up with KiwiSaver as well. And so
cool.
My eldest, George, he can look at his KiwiSaver every month. He gets some money put into it every month and he keeps telling me that.
That's awesome.
You can use it to buy a house. And he goes, okay, I think he's got $500. And he goes, okay, well, when I'm going to buy a less expensive house and then I'm going to buy a ninja costume. And I said, all right, well, you keep saving, buddy.
With the change.
With the change from your $500 house, you cool. Absolutely go do that.
That's cool.
But yeah, again, it's that whole financial literacy piece, right? We teach them the money goes in, it comes out, you've got to pay tax, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, it irritates me, to be honest, when I hear of people saying, I can't afford to buy a house. And, because the average price is $1 million. Well, it's the average price. Yep. There must be a property less than $1 million if that's the average. So maybe you don't need to be looking at it. If you can't afford $1 million house, maybe you can be looking at a $600,000 house or an apartment or something.
Yes.
There's an opportunity out there somewhere. Yep. Don't say no. If you say no, you won't.
Exactly.
And if you say yes, you can.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I see people from, smart cookies just saying, oh no, it's just not within our reach. And I'm thinking, don't get
no guts,
it.
No glory. It's
it's true. But didn't you have a house that yourself that you couldn't live in?
Couldn't afford to live in it. No, I bought my first house in I don't know, 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago now, and I couldn't afford to live in it at all. I had to rent it out. It was it was unaffordable for me to stay there, as well as it was miles away from where I worked, because that's the only place I could afford. It was an hour away from work, so I'm not going to live there, pay huge amounts of money towards a mortgage and have to travel an hour for work. So I did the sensible thing and I rented it out.
Right.
And I lived in a dirt box flat in Ponsonby. And I think it wasn't until I was 32 that I could afford to live in a house that I owned. And there just came a point in life where it was you have to do the hard yards. It doesn't come, that whole thing about pregnancy and being screwed. There were times where, I chose to put money into savings and have a week of noodles and I had to do that for 2 or 3 years to even get to the deposit to buy the house.
Sure.
But if you want to do it, like you said, if you say yes, it's going to happen, you naturally are going to start gravitating towards behaviours and thoughts that are going to get you where you need to go.
Yeah.
So
your attitude leads your actions.
Absolutely.
Not the other way around.
Yep. Yep.
There has to be a willing audience for that. I was in the past. I was a foundation sort of member, if you like, of the board for the Manurewa High School Business School, and the school came about. Business school came about because of the success one teacher had in getting a group of students into a competition, an entrepreneurial competition, and they won. Yeah. And the school, to their benefit, treated these kids like heroes, like they had won the first 15, had won. But then that led to a broader conversation around what the career perspectives were down there. And the two careers that most people in Manurewa, the kids had most exposure to would be the police and the warriors. And so but there's a whole raft of other opportunities out there. And this business school was being set up to broaden their horizons. That there are many things you can do in your life, and it's not just about those two things. Yeah. But there's some tragic situations down there where kids couldn't come to school because the parents had burned their school uniform because they wanted the kids to go out to work to help support the family. For the right reasons, but for the wrong outcomes. So, but there's those sorts of scenarios around. What we're talking about is probably at the upper level of things. Yeah. I think the real challenge is to how to get that basic literacy and financial confidence. Yes. Right throughout all of our country. I mean, in a corporate analogy, I think it was General Electric. I'm not saying you can do this in the community, but the philosophy was that in this company they got rid of their 10% worst performers every year because people spend too much time bringing them up to speed. And so you're better to focus on the stars than on that. Now, you can't do that in a community. You've got your 10%. You can't get rid of them. So what do you do with that 10%? And so without holding the rest of the country back. And I don't think we're having those sorts of conversations. We're still making excuses. People are still finding that they're taking comfort in victimhood. The same boiling water which hardens the egg, softens the potato. Yeah. It's what you're made of, not your environment.
Yeah.
This country offers so many opportunities, and it's an opportunity. But what we have to do is get people to stop seeing themselves as victims. We have people that take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there, and making a go of their lives and influencing future generations.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to wind back a little bit to music, to creativity. I know music is a massive part of your life. Sure. And now you've got a bit more time to do it.
Yes.
And you've released an album.
Yes.
Which is incredible. How much of that, what did you learn through that process around creating? You're doing creativity as well as your passion, which is music, but then also balancing your time amongst everything else that you need to do.
Well, for the first time, we've written our own songs. So I've written the music for 12 of the 14 tracks and words for 6. And so that actually draws upon everything else that you do anyway. I've found that's just great, just to sit down there, and sometimes you come up with a tune and you put words to it. Sometimes you come up with words and put a tune to it. It just varies, and some be sitting down at the piano just playing some chords, and a melody will hit you and think, well, da 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 da. Yeah. And so you sort of squeeze your brain a bit, and this sort of pops out, and so we've got this raw, and I'm playing with a couple of mates on this CD, and that's fun, just collaborating with a couple of rascals. Yeah. And lots of laughter. And, to be honest, we started playing together because, if I said to Billy and they said to their wives, look, we're going to catch up every Wednesday and have a glass of red wine, the chances of that happening are pretty
it wouldn't go
pretty slim. But like Scott with golf, really. You need that. So instead of golf, we play ukulele.
Band practice.
Band practice. And and that's a bit of fun.
I can't let the team down.
Can't let the team down. I've got to be there, darling. So we have a glass of red and tell a few lies and sing a few tunes. But this whole process, this is what was wonderful is that, so we, we got these songs, the melody sorted and the chords right and the words right. But then we brought in Dixon Nacey, who is just an absolute superstar guitarist, amazing man, beautiful man. And he brought in some of his mates, Austin Cole, Pete Lopolo, and Steve on drums, Pete's on the keys, and Mostyn's on bass. And so with this backing group, we then created this album, and we went to the Lab, which is a really cool studio in Mount Eden Road, and Oliver Harmer was the recording engineer and did the mastering. And we've just got something we're really proud of. And it's just a bit of fun, and so there's a song there about Herne Bay, there's a song there about other parts of the country, there's a song there about the Pukeko Waltz, there's a song there about granddaughters knocking on the door, there's a song for everything really. Cold water swimming, which is something I love to do. I try and swim all year round, that's something I'm very enthusiastic about. So everything I do sort of fed its way into the album anyway,
There's a particular earworm, and it kind of leans to what we've been speaking about today, called Empty Suit.
Yeah.
Love that song.
Well, this is a song written for me, right?
Right.
Because I was in
what's an empty suit?
Right, yeah. Well, I was in recruitment in my last 10 years of working, and empty suit was a phrase we used to describe someone who looks the part but doesn't necessarily have the substance. Okay.
And it's written about you.
Yeah, well, exactly. So hopefully my neighbour John wrote the words. Hopefully, he was taking the more literal translation of a suit, just hanging in the wardrobe.
Yeah.
So that was what we started the program with.
And it's got a really cool. Well, one of my favourite lyrics is talking about you have to work, and some of us enjoy work. You and I both enjoy working, but when you're having to work for financial gain, it's about making sure that you've got control of what's going on, or you're. You say, clamber up the ladder and don't look down.
Yeah, because if you're not the ringmaster, you could be the clown.
I absolutely love it. Because, my dad and I talk about people that he's known through working, and, he's a big networking dude as well. He's a house painter, so he's always in people's homes having cups of teas and blah, blah, blah. And, he's talking about...
Gary's cool.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's a really good man. But he's talking about, these people that he's known that have these really big corporate lives that... they hit their peak or whatnot, and then all of a sudden they're restructured and they're thrown out.
Sure.
And they've been living this lifestyle of the high and mighty corporate person, and then all of a sudden all that money's gone and they haven't prepared for something further down the track. And I kind of liked that around the... Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. And there's also the mindset which goes with that. I created my destiny. Mm-hmm. So I have control of my memories about that, if you know what I mean. If someone else says, I don't need you anymore, it takes a long time to get over that. In recruitment, again, we saw people who'd made redundant. Yeah. And no fault of their own, it's just one of those decisions that didn't work for them. Yeah. But man, it took a while for someone to get their mojo back, and because they weren't in control of that, they had to manage that first before they could move on, if you like. Yeah. And it would be the same if all of a sudden you found yourself, say in your late 50s, as a lot of people did during COVID. Yeah. In New Zealand, all those organisations laid off tons of people. Yeah. Some of them, more mature, and finding it hard to reinvent themselves and needing money. Yeah. That's tough, Yeah. So, and that can happen to anybody. I don't care who you are. I've seen some pretty high flyers all of a sudden find themselves not in a job, but finding themselves with a lot of demands on their financial situation. And that creates some desperation, and stress, and a lot of that stuff, if you ask me, leads to some cancerous issues or poor health or something.
Absolutely. It all feeds it, right?
Yeah, just have something up your sleeve. You are your insurance policy. Yeah. You are your insurance policy. So
you're the ringmaster.
You are the ringmaster, absolutely. And you don't want to be a clown.
No.
Shall we sing that bit?
Let's hear it. That sounds great.
I don't want to say that you can live without work. I don't want to say it 'cause you'll go berserk. The pants, the jacket, space to hang a tie, material things you need until you die. So stick to the schedule, stick to the plan. Wear an elegant suit and feel like a man. Clamber up the ladder and never look down. If you're not the ringmaster, you could be the clown. But somewhere there's an empty suit, single-breasted, flat-chested, hanging on a hanger at the end of the rail. And somewhere there's a naked man dancing a caper, escaper, tending to his garden and brewing his ale.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Carly.
so much.
Love
for
to
coming.
see you.